What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. We have some interesting stuff to talk about today, mostly around the Nintendo Online service, as Nintendo continues to kind of drip feed information, get people excited for a service that we kind of know about, kind of not. I mean, we don't really know when it's launching. We know it's launching in the second half of September, as we're going to talk about here, but it's still, the whole thing's still a bit weird with this whole situation. First, though, let's get into some smaller bits of news, and we're going to start with that Undertale Collector's Edition. Remember how we talked about it before, how it was coming out in Japan, and we weren't sure if it was coming out here in the US or other parts of the world? Well, it does look like it is releasing, and there is an exclusive place currently to go pre-order it, and you can do so right now, actually, at fangamer.com. They have it all up here, as you're seeing. And what's cool is it looks like it is coming with everything that we saw before. We have the complete soundtrack, sheet music booklet featuring annotations by the creator, 14-karat gold-plated brass music box locket, and all kinds of other cool little things there. And of course, the game does come with it as well. And what was also really cool is they also posted over on Twitter that they will have actual physical standard edition copies, it looked like, in Best Buy specifically. It seems like they made kind of an exclusive deal, and that's a big deal, obviously, for them to make that deal with Best Buy. So if you don't get the big, collector's edition, you can still get it physically, locally for the most part, as long as there is a Best Buy in your area, and they are aiming to ship this September, kind of like what we heard with the Japanese version, which makes sense because that kind of falls in line with the anniversary of when the game was released to the public and kind of took over as a niche-based game on the internet and made some people mad, made some people happy. Depends on where you were, especially during that infamous game FAQs poll that took place for the best game ever and everything, and Undertale did not make many people happy there. But I mean, it's a good game, and it's definitely good for niche collectors and everything. Or if you just like the game, just a standard edition physical copy is a good thing nowadays to have. Also, we had some big hires over with the initiative. Do you remember how Microsoft went on stage at E3, talked about buying all these different studios, Ninja Theory, buying Undead Labs and Playground Games? Then they talked about the initiative, which is one that they were forming themselves and putting in Santa Monica. Well, man, they are building. I mean, they are building this thing. Actually, on LinkedIn, David Gallagher, who's actually running the whole thing, head of the studio, talked about a ton of people from some big games that you've played or even heard of. Brian Westergaard worked on God of War 2018, the one we just played and finished and one I really liked. Ann Lohr is a recruiter and worked at Respawn. Christian Cantamessa, the former writer from Red Dead Redemption. Blake Fisher is Senior Director of Portfolio Planning for Microsoft. And then Daniel Newberger and Lindsay McQueenie, and they're both from Crystal Dynamics. So yeah, they are filling this thing out. They have quite a few people now working here, and from the rumors that we keep hearing about, I keep hearing people talk about them working on possibly a Perfect Dark reboot, or, I mean, who knows? I mean, the talent level that they have here is ridiculous. Like, they are just hiring on, and that's what Microsoft should have been doing a while ago, but maybe they just now got kind of the budget and the funding with Phil Spencer kind of moving up to a more senior role, and maybe he can just make these decisions without having to ask anybody, really. So they are working hard, it looks like, to build a studio and have other studios below that with some of their big stuff with Playground Games, who I think is a very talented studio, and I think they're going to make a pretty cool game out of what we believe to be Fable. They're really setting themselves up for the next generation to actually compete against Sony, whereas this past generation, they didn't really do that, and Sony just kind of ran over them with all of their games. All right, guys, well, some of the quick news out of the way, let's jump into some of the bigger stuff, starting with the Nintendo Online service. They put out another tweet showing off Mario Bros. 3, a game everyone, I think for the most part, is familiar with, either played when they were growing up or even went back to it and played it. But they showed it off, and they talked about how it will be able to be played online, which I assume means you and another person can play and take turns as you would if they were sitting next to you. You go, okay, you've either beaten the level or you died, my turn, and you kind of just switch off, and I assume you watch them play the level, which I guess is kind of neat. And if they have voice chat implemented with it, that'd be even better, because then you can kind of talk while you're playing. That seems like an awesome idea. It's really cool to have online added to these games, although if you've been emulating or anything, you've probably tried this with NetPlay, maybe not with this game, but with some other game, and had a similar experience where you can do that. Fighting games didn't work as well as I learned when I tried playing, but games where you kind of take turns actually work pretty well. And it's been something we've done in the past. It's really neat to see them bring it to the platform as like a first-party thing, and hopefully they continue to add it to more and more games. But what's weird is there are still some things we're not really clear on. For example, if you look at their original tweet where it talked about them saying it was going to launch in the second half of September, they talk about how the cloud saves will work with compatible games, which seems to imply that it won't work with everything, as in some games just won't be able to be backed up to the cloud, which is weird because we would figure that this would be a system level thing, as in you don't go into the game to do it, you go into the options or the settings on your system or the storage on your system, as we do now where we go to delete or archive games, and you go in, maybe there's a little cloud that says back up the save to the cloud, you hit it and it saves it and everything. But it seems that the game has to be compatible. Now that could mean that they have to figure out how to exclude certain games like you wouldn't back up Fortnite, because that's already backed up, right? They back that up. Warframe, same thing. They back up their own stuff. It's all online. That could be what it's referring to, but the concern I see right now is that it could mean that some games just don't have to opt in for it. And that's kind of the situation we are right now with voice chat, where even that's sporadic, where we see Unreal Engine 4 and Fortnite have managed to incorporate that already into their game, but no one else really has, other than I guess Splatoon 2 that uses that weird mobile app. My concern is you need that mobile app to then do cloud saves or anything else. That would be weird, but Nintendo hasn't really used that app for anything else, so maybe that's not really something they're not interested in now after all the backlash, so we'll see. We're also still waiting for any of the other NES games that are apparently coming to the system. I assume they're going to do all of this soon. A lot of people think it might be a direct. I think they might just update a web page, to be honest. They don't really need to go through a full direct and try to explain everything little by little. They could just update a web page and then put some YouTube videos out on demand. Not everything has to be a live presentation. And to be completely honest, I would prefer that. I'd prefer to have a web page that I can go to and reference, and then maybe have some YouTube videos that I can watch to kind of figure out what I need to do to back up stuff, or possibly invite people into parties that are system level. I might be reaching there, or messages. Or adding friends. These are all things that I would hope that they have like an instruction set or something online. Kind of like, if you remember Labo came out, and before then we had videos that kind of showed us more and more about Labo. That's kind of the way that they can approach the online service. But as far as we know now, they're going to, I guess, keep drip feeding information through Twitter, as that tweet for Mario 3 came out yesterday, and then the one for the second half of September came out a little while ago as well. And I guess we'll keep waiting. I could see the NES games show up in a direct where they say these are the NES games that are popping up. It's launching on this date, which we're like a month out almost, and we don't even know the date that it's coming out. So it's a whole thing, but of course, I'll keep you guys up to date on it as we go forward. Next up, let's talk about some very odd Amazon UK Nintendo Switch listings that seem to be placeholders for games coming up in a direct, as they say, announced in a Nintendo Direct, essentially. And this seems to be confusing to a lot of people, and we're going to kind of get into this here. Now, from what we've seen, there were about 8 listings under the Nintendo Switch name on Amazon UK, with 6 of them just being straight up Switch title number 27, for example. And then 2 of them said Pokemon, and then there was 3DS, but it was still under the Nintendo Switch name, which was weird. It seemed like an error. That seems, I think, to be confirmed at this point. I think it was an error, but the other ones are a little weird, and this is kind of where things get kind of sketchy, and we're still not even sure if these are actual placeholders for games coming up, or if they're ones that were kind of left over from before, because to be honest, I don't really know how these placeholders work for Amazon with their backend. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. For example, if we go to title number 27, there are reviews there from as far back as January, and that's because title number 27 was actually picked out last January. It was something that people saw, but it was on Amazon US. I believe it's just a regular Amazon that generally people go to, and then if you go to it from a certain country, it'll then redirect you to like Amazon UK or Amazon Japan or any of these other places. Amazon the US had listings for placeholders, but they don't have them anymore. The way you can tell is if you go to any of those old news articles that have these links, they just take you to nowhere. But those placeholders now up on Amazon UK, but they have the same reviews. This is where it gets really confusing. Now, I don't think anyone's, having a hard time believing that there is a Nintendo Direct coming up soon. Like, we could see it at the end of August, early September. I'm still kind of thinking first week in September, maybe. Could be the last week in August. And of course, a lot of people are thinking we might have a Nindies presentation or a Nintendo Indies Direct, and that could that could work to put some physical copies up on the Amazon store if they do some physical work as well. It's very possible. So now we have to think, are these going up pretty much in advance of a Nintendo Direct that's happening in the next few weeks? Yeah, probably. It probably is. But these could be errors, so keep that in mind. Now, if a Nintendo Direct does pop up soonish, they would then, of course, pop up on Amazon. So yeah, these would be filled in. But it's also very possible Amazon just reuses these as they need to, and that's why those reviews are so old. We'll just have to wait and see, but yeah, it's exciting now because we know a Direct is coming up soon. We of course had that Smash Direct ahead of what we think is going to be the big Direct because they probably want to just get that information ahead. So we'll see, but exciting times definitely. As early September, I'm thinking we're going to see probably that big fall Direct with some games that are coming out this fall, and then maybe some coming out maybe in the spring. I don't know. We'll see. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Devil May Cry 5. It got people were really excited when they first saw it at E3 because it looked like it was going back to what people remember Devil May Cry with Devil May Cry 4. Of course, 5, being the next in the numbered series. And we heard that it was going to be playable at GamesCom. That's coming up next week. GamesCom starts for the press August 21st, so a week from now, we'll start seeing a lot of videos and gameplay impressions and interviews, all kinds of stuff coming out. And now ahead of Gamescom, they've given us a little tease, as you're seeing here on Twitter, where they actually have the start menu or the press any button for the Devil May Cry 5 demo, and that is, of course, from Hideki Itsuno, where they say demo version for Gamescom 2018 is complete. 10 days to the world's first playable, because from what we've seen, it's been all cinematics and everything. And I think a lot of people are really excited for Devil May Cry 5 because there were people let down by Devil May Cry. I guess it was kind of like a reboot of the series and everything. People didn't quite like it. It was 30 frames per second. It wasn't what they remember Devil May Cry to be. And this looks like it's going back to what everyone remembers, just super fast, high octane action. And I think it's going to be great. I think it's really fun. And I'm really looking forward now more and more to Gamescom as more and more people are starting to tease and show things off and talk about what they're going to be there for. So get excited for Gamescom, right? We just had QuakeCon, and now in a week or so, we're going to start seeing press interviews and all kinds of cool stuff. Hopefully, some big announcements from Gamescom, from everyone. It's just going to be a good time. It's just because then we have that, and then a month later, we have Tokyo Game Show, and probably sometime before then, we'll have the Nintendo Direct. And then we'll get into the meat of all the games releasing. It's just going to be a good time in games, and we're not too far off now. And guys, that's where I'm going to leave Newswave today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys like the video if you liked it, dislike it if not, and leave comments down below about everything we talked about, whether it's Nintendo Online, if you still have questions about it, maybe you're just excited, maybe you're ready to finally get to when they release this thing so we can see what it's all about. Let me know about Devil May Cry 5 and if you're excited for that. And then what about this Nintendo Switch placeholders? What do you think they are? Do you think they're errors? Or do you think we really are that close to a Nintendo Direct? Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.